Welcome to Surviving AI.
Okay, let's just jump right in. Picture this. You're 40 years old. You've just finished looking at your finances. You've seen the quarterly report for your company, and you're a tour. You're pretty sure, let's say 90% sure, that your current job has about 3 years left.
3 years, that's the ticking clock.
3 years before an algorithm, some piece of software does it better, faster, and way cheaper. You have $50,000 in savings. And that's it. So the question we're tackling today is, what is the exact step-by-step 24-month plan to get from where you are today to an $80,000 career that AI cannot touch?
That is probably the single most expensive question people are asking themselves right now. It really is. And I mean, for a lot of people, the answer to that question, it determines whether they retire in comfort or, whether they struggle for the next 20 years.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's February 12, 2026 today. And I want to be really clear about what we're doing. We are not talking about learning to code in some vague aspirational way. We are so done with generalities.
Yeah, the fluff pieces are over.
We are done with the future of work articles. Today, it is all about specific survival blueprints.
Exactly. We're finally moving from the what to the how. In our previous discussions, we've identified which jobs are safe. We called it the protection playbook.
Right.
But just knowing a job is safe, that doesn't really help you get it, does it? So today we are walking through the actual logistics. We have 7 specific scenarios, 7 personas, and the exact certifications, the costs, the timelines, everything they need to execute to save their careers.
And the stakes.
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't be higher. We're really talking about a start Monday kind of urgency here.
Yeah.
These are 24-month timelines for people who could be automated out of a job in 36 months. So that margin for error it's basically zero.
It is. If you spend 6 months studying the wrong thing, you might not recover from that. That's the reality.
Time is the currency, not just money.
That's right. And what I love about these roadmaps we've put together is how diverse they are. We're going to look at a retail manager pivoting to nursing. We're going to talk about a customer service rep who becomes a cloud engineer for under $1,000.
That one is it's mind-blowing.
It's incredible. And we'll even get into a paralegal reinventing themselves as a legal operations manager.
That customer service one, I am so excited to unpack that one because the ROI, the return on investment is it's insane.
It's off the charts.
But before we get there, let's just set the stage. All of this is based on a huge stack of data. We're talking salary reports from early 2026, certification cost breakdowns straight from CompTIA and AWS, labor market analysis. This isn't guesswork. This is the math of survival in 2026.
Right. And you're going to hear a common theme today, and that theme is specificity. In 2026, being a generalist it's dangerous. Being a specialist in a regulated or a complex field, that's where the safety is.
Okay, let's do it. Let's jump into our first case study. We're calling this one the low-cost, high-yield pivot. So meet David. David is 26. He works in customer service, and he's making about $38,000 a year.
Oof. A very, very vulnerable position to be in right now. I mean, between the chatbots and the voice AI, that traditional customer service role is it's evaporating.
It's gone.
Companies do not want to pay humans to answer phones anymore if they don't have to.
Exactly. So David needs out, and he needs out now. His destination, a cloud engineer or an associate network engineer. Now, looking at the sources, this path seems to have by far the highest return on investment for certification costs. But you have to walk us through David's 24-month blueprint because he's making $38,000 a year. He's broke.
He's broke.
He can't just quit his job.
No, absolutely not. David has no capital. He cannot drop 20 grand on some fancy boot camp. He needs a path that pays off as he goes along. So the first step, months 1 through 3, is the CompTIA A+ certification.
The classic IT entry point. Okay, but let's pause here. What is the CompTIA A+A? Because people hear these acronyms, their eyes just glaze over. What is he actually studying for 3 months?
It's the foundational exam for hardware and software. He is studying how a computer actually works. He's learning about motherboards, RAM speeds, the difference between an SSD and an old spinning hard drive. He's learning how to troubleshoot a printer that won't print.
The worst job in the world.
Worst. He's learning how to configure a mobile device for corporate email, basic security hygiene, all that stuff.
It sounds incredibly dry. I'm just going to say it.
Oh, it is. It is boring. I'm not going to lie to you. It's tedious. But that boredom, that's the filter. If you can't sit through learning about port numbers and bus speeds, you're not going to survive in IT. It's just that simple.
Okay, so let's look at the cost. David's on a tight budget. What's this going to send him back?
Right. The CompTIA Plus is actually 2 separate exams, Core 1 and Core 2. In 2026, the official cost is roughly $265 per exam.
So $530 total. For David, that's a lot of money.
It is, yeah. That is a significant chunk of change for someone on his salary. But this certification, it's the gatekeeper. It proves to an employer that you understand the machine. You can't troubleshoot a cloud server if you don't even know what a server is.
Is it worth it, though? I mean, really, $500.
The data is clear. For entry level, yes. You really can't even get a basic help desk or support role, which is that first rung on the ladder without it. But David isn't stopping there. That's just to get his foot in the door of the IT building. Step 2, months 4 through 6, is the CompTIA Network Plus OPU.
Okay, stick with the math. What's the damage there?
The Network Plus exam is running about $390 in 2026. And this one is crucial because you absolutely cannot be a cloud engineer if you don't understand networks.
Okay, explain that connection for me. Why does a cloud guy need to know about networks? I thought the cloud was just,
Yeah.
the internet.
Sad. That's what everyone thinks. Look, think of the cloud as a massive construction site. You're building these digital skyscrapers. But before you can build the skyscraper, you need the plumbing and you need the roads to get to the site. That's networking.
Ah, okay.
IP addressing, subnets, TCP/IP protocols, that is the plumbing of the entire internet. If you don't understand how data moves from point A to point B, you cannot build anything in the cloud. Network Plus validates that he gets the plumbing.
So, okay, we're 6 months in. He spent, what, around $900? He's probably qualified for a better help desk job at this point, right?
Yeah.
Maybe get a little pay bump.
Exactly. He could realistically jump to a Tier 2 support role or maybe a junior systems administrator role. In some markets, that could pay over $60,000.
Wow.
He's already nearly doubled his income just by understanding the plumbing. But the real destination, that's the cloud. Which brings us to step 3. Months 6 through 12. The AWS certifications, these are the salary multipliers.
Okay, this is where it gets really, really interesting. I was looking at the costs for these, and they are shockingly low compared to the salary bump you can get.
They are. The entry point is the AWS Cloud Practitioner. It costs $100. That is it.
$100.
It's a foundational exam. It just covers cloud concepts, security, billing. It's basically the I speak the language certification.
$100. That's less than a nice dinner out for 2.
And then the big one, the AWS Solutions Architect Associate. This is the gold standard for junior cloud roles. The cost for that, $150.
Okay, let's get this straight. For the AWS leg of this journey, the part that actually gets him the cloud engineer title, he is spending $250 total.
Plus study materials, but there are so many fantastic free resources out there. Nova Vista, DataCamp, Coursera, the free tiers on AWS itself. That if he is disciplined, then yes. The total financial investment for all the exam fees across this entire year is roughly $1,170.
$1,100. Just, wow. But let's talk about that discipline part, because David works 9 to 5 dealing with angry customers. He comes home fried. He has to ignore Netflix. He has to ignore his friends and sit down for 2 hours every single night to study TCP/IP protocols.
That is the reality of it. It's not just about the $1,100. It's about sacrificing your social life for 12 months. It is about telling your friends, I can't go out every single weekend. But the question you have to ask yourself is it worth it?
Well, let's answer that. What is the prize at the end of this roadmap? What's the payoff?
The data from ZipRecruiter and Glassdoor in late 25 and early 26 it's really compelling. Entry-level AWS cloud practitioner roles have an average salary of around $85,866.
From $38,000
Yeah.
to $85,000. That is more than double his income.
And that's just the start. Junior network engineers, they average around $61,000. But if you look at the growth potential, cloud architects, which is where David could be in 5 years, they're seeing salaries from $130,000 to over $200,000.
That is life-changing money. And there's a stat here that really jumped out at me. 73% of AWS practitioners got a raise after getting certified, and the average raise was 27%.
It creates immediate leverage for you. And here's the thing about the whole bootcamp versus self-study debate, because this is a huge deal. In 2026, employers are frankly, skeptical of those $20,000 boot camps that promise you'll be a full-stack developer in 12 weeks.
Why is that? I thought boot camps were supposed to be the fast track.
The market is absolutely flooded with bootcamp graduates who know how to code a specific app, but they don't understand why it works. They lack the foundation. But someone who ground their way through CompTIA plus A, then Network plus A, then 2 tiers of AWS certs, all while working a full-time job, that shows grit. That shows a specific, verified skill set. It's the difference between I took a class and I passed the industry standard exams.
It's proof of work.
Precisely. And in 2026, there's a vacuum for junior cloud engineers. Senior talent is incredibly expensive and rare. Companies need people who can handle the day-to-day cloud maintenance, and they are willing to pay for it. David's path is, without a doubt, the highest ROI roadmap we have.
Okay, so that is the tech route. High yield, a lot of studying, but a relatively low cost of entry. But let's be honest, not everyone wants to or even can stare at a screen configuring servers all day.
No, absolutely not.
Some people need that human interaction. Some people want to be completely physically removed from any algorithm. So let's pivot to our second scenario. We're calling this the guaranteed stability ladder.
This is Sarah's roadmap. Sarah is 35. She's a retail manager, and she's making $45,000 a year.
Retail management. Talk about a job in the crosshairs. Self-checkout, automated inventory, e-commerce.
It is a tough, tough place to be. So Sarah needs a pivot that is physically safe from AI. She's looking at healthcare, specifically the nurse practitioner track. But getting there is the tricky part because she can't just stop working for 4 years to get a degree. She has rent, she has bills.
Right, she can't go to zero income, so how does she bridge that gap?
This is where we use the ladder strategy.
Yeah.
So step 1, months 1 through 3, she becomes a CNA, a certified nursing assistant.
Okay, now I have to stop you right there.
Yeah.
I looked at the numbers for CNAs. The median pay is around $39,500.
Yeah.
Sarah's making $45,000 right now. That's a pay cut. She's losing $500 a month.
It is, and this is the reality check part of the episode. This is the hard part.
Is that realistic, though?
Hmm.
I mean, seriously, telling someone to take a pay cut in this economy?
Yeah.
Is that courage or is that just desperation?
I think it's a bit of both. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. In a lot of cities, $39,000 is poverty wages. She will have to get a roommate. She will be eating rice and beans. But you have to look at the alternative. If she stays in retail, she might be at $0 in 3 years.
So it's a strategic retreat.
Exactly. The CNA program costs between $700 and $1,000. It's fast. Sometimes it's just 4 to 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And it accomplishes 2 really important things. 1, it gets her into the healthcare environment immediately. She starts gaining that clinical experience, which is invaluable later.
Okay.
And 2, the flexibility. CNAs often work 3 12-hour shifts.
312, so that means she has 4 days off every week.
Correct. And that frees up 4 days a week for step 2, which is becoming an LPN, a licensed practical nurse. This is the bridge. Going from a CNA to an LPN takes about 12 months if you do a fast-track program at a community college.
And the cost on that?
Community college programs for LPNs are absolutely the way to go. You're looking at anywhere from $3,000 to maybe $12,000, depending on the state. But here's the payoff. LPNs earn a median salary of roughly $64,000.
Okay, so let's track this. Year 1, she takes a big hit. She suffers. She's a CNA doing incredibly hard work. But by year 2, as an LPN, she's making $64,000. She is already $20,000 up from her retail job.
Exactly. And she is now in a protected career. The demand for nurses is astronomical. We're looking at a shortage of anywhere from 250,000 to 500,000 nurses by 2030. There are nearly 200,000 openings projected per year. The job security is absolute.
But explain the difference for us. LPN versus RN. Why not just go straight for the RN?
The RN, the Registered Nurse Program, that's usually an associate's or a bachelor's degree, so it takes 2 to 4 years. Sarah cannot afford to be in school full-time for 4 years without a solid income. The LPN is the tactical bridge. It allows her to earn a solid middle-class wage while she studies for the next step.
Which brings us to step 3, the LPN to RN bridge program.
Right. So once she's an LPN, she's earning decent money. Now she can enter one of these bridge programs. They're designed specifically for working LPNs. They shave a lot of time off the registered nurse degree because she already has clinical experience. The schools give her credit for that.
And the destination pay for an RN.
The median is $93,600. And if she keeps going to nurse practitioner, which is really the long-term goal, you're talking $120,000 plus.
It really is a ladder. You climb one rung, You stabilize, you earn more, and that funds the next rung up.
And you have to factor in geography here. This strategy works exceptionally well in places like California, where RNs can earn $137,000. Or in places like Texas and Florida, where the cost of living is lower, but the demand is just massive because of the population growth.
It's a grind, though.
Yeah.
I mean, going from a retail manager to cleaning bedpans as a CNA, that is a serious humility check.
It's an act of courage. It really is. It's looking at the math and saying, I will take a small loss now and a hit to my ego to secure a massive win later. It's not for everyone. It's physical, it's emotional labor. But if you want guaranteed employment until, say, you retire, this is it.
Okay, so we've got the tech hustle with David and the healthcare grind with Sarah. Now let's look at the white-collar sector, because a lot of people are sitting there thinking, I'm a paralegal, or I'm an accountant, I'm safe.
And they are so wrong. Those are actually some of the most threatened roles right now because generative AI excels at document review, drafting, and basic number crunching.
So let's talk about Jennifer. She's 42, she's a paralegal, she's making $62,000. She sees the writing on the wall. AI is already doing her first drafts. She knows that soon the lawyers aren't going to need her for the basics. What's her pivot?
She needs to move from doing the legal work to managing the legal factory. She needs to become a legal operations manager.
Legal ops. Okay, unpack that for us. What does that actually mean?
Think about a big law firm or a corporate legal department. It's a business. But lawyers, they are notoriously bad at business.
For sure.
They'll spend 3 hours looking for a contract clause. They use these outdated spreadsheets. Legal ops is about using technology and process to make that law factory run cheaper and faster. It's managing the vendors, the software, the budgets.
So instead of her writing the contract, she's implementing the software that writes the contract.
Exactly. She needs to master the very tools that threaten her. Platforms like Clio, Spellbook, and CoCounsel. She needs to understand how AI integrates into the entire workflow.
Give me a concrete example. Like, what does she do on a Tuesday?
Great question. On a Tuesday, instead of proofreading a brief, she's setting up an automated workflow in a platform like Ironclad. So when the sales team closes a deal, the contract is automatically generated, it's sent for signature, and it's filed, without a lawyer ever touching it unless there's a red flag. She is engineering the flow of law.
And the salary data on this, what's the potential?
It is impressive. In the U.S., legal ops managers average between $84,000 and $129,000, and the senior roles like head of legal ops can hit $192,000 up to $266,000.
Wow. And I saw a data point for Texas specifically that was just eye-watering.
Yes. The Texas outlier. Some data shows legal ops managers in Texas hitting an average of $278,000. Now, you got to contextualize that. That's likely highly experienced people in these massive energy or tech corporate legal departments. But it shows you what the ceiling is.
So how does Jennifer the paralegal get there?
Yeah.
She knows the law, sure, but she doesn't know ops.
Certifications really help here. The CLOC, that's the Corporate Legal Operations Consortium, they offer foundational training. Or there's the CLM, the Certified Legal Manager. They're not cheap, maybe a few $1,000s, but they signal to the market that you're not just a paralegal anymore. You are a strategic operator.
It's all about leveraging her transferable skills, isn't it? She already knows what a contract is supposed to look like. Now she just needs to learn how to automate the life cycle of that contract.
Exactly. She's pivoting from being a cost center, the person billing the hours, to being the efficiency expert who saves the firm money.
Okay, let's pair her with Marcus. Marcus is an accountant, 28 years old, making $55,000. He is, for all intents and purposes, a bookkeeper.
Bookkeeping is dead. I'm sorry I have to say it, but with the AI tools available in 2026, manual bookkeeping is obsolete. Marcus needs to become an AI finance architect.
That sounds a little bit like a made-up title to make him feel better about his job being automated.
It sounds buzzwordy, I get it, but the function is very, very real. It's about moving from hourly billing for tasks to value-based pricing for systems. He shouldn't be charging to enter data into QuickBooks. He should be charging a flat fee to set up a system that does it all automatically.
We're talking about tools like Xero's automation features and agentic AI. Okay, explain agentic AI, because that's a key term for 2026. How is that different from me just asking ChatGPT a question?
Great question. Old AI, like the chatbots of 2023, it was passive. You talk to it, it talks back. Agentic AI is like giving an intern a login. You give it access to your email and your accounting software. It can autonomously execute tasks. It reads the invoice that just came into your email, it logs into Xero, it matches the vendor, enters the line items, and it only pings Marcus if, say, the total is over $5,000 and needs approval.
So it does the work.
It does the work. Marcus isn't typing numbers anymore. He's supervising a team of digital interns. That's the architectural shift. He needs to be the guy who builds that architecture for his clients.
So his pitch goes from I'll do your taxes to I will build the machine that does your company's accounting.
Precisely. And the rates reflect that value. Junior AI consultants in finance are charging $150 an hour. Mid-level is $150 to $300.
That brings us right to one of our universal principles, doesn't it? Specificity.
Yes. I know AI is a worthless statement in 2026. It's too broad, it means nothing. But Marcus saying, I automate accounts payable for mid-sized construction firms using Xero and AI agents, that is a protected career.
Why construction specifically?
Because construction accounting is messy, you've got retainage, job costing, change orders. AI struggles with that nuance without a human to oversee it. If Marcus niches down to construction accounting AI, he has a moat around his business. The generalist gets replaced by AI. The specialist wields the AI.
I love that. The specialist wields the AI. Okay, let's shift demographics now. We've talked about people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. But what if you're 50? What if you're Lisa?
Lisa is a crucial scenario. She is 50 years old, works in data entry, and earns $41,000. She is arguably the most threatened person we've talked about because data entry is something like 98% automatable.
But Lisa doesn't want to be a cloud architect. She doesn't want to hustle for 18 hours a day or learn Python. She just wants stability until she can retire.
Exactly. Her goal is different. She needs what we call a late career stability play. And for her, the answer is healthcare administration and specifically medical coding.
Medical coding. This feels like another one of those hidden infrastructure jobs. What is it exactly?
Every time you go to the doctor writes down a diagnosis, let's say streptococcal pharyngitis. But the insurance company, they don't read English, they read codes. Someone has to translate that diagnosis into a very specific alphanumeric code, like J02.00. That code determines payment. If it's wrong, the doctor doesn't get paid, or worse, they get audited by the government.
So it's basically high-stakes translation.
It is extremely high-stakes translation.
Right.
And it requires human oversight because the regulations change constantly and the liability for fraud is huge.
So what's the roadmap for Lisa to get there?
She needs the CPC certification, that's Certified Professional Coder from the APC.
And what's the cost and timeline on that?
The bundle with the books, and you absolutely need the books. The code books are huge, like old phone books. That runs about $2,000 to $3,000. The study timeline is 4 to 6 months.
But wait, is a 50-year-old going to be able to memorize thousands of these codes?
That's a great point, but you don't memorize them. You learn how to look them up correctly and apply the right guidelines. It's all about logic and attention to detail, which are the exact skills Lisa has honed for years in data entry.
And the outcome? What's the pay like?
Medical office and coding roles typically pay between $55,000 and $75,000. It's a solid bump from her $41,000. But the real win for Lisa is stability. Healthcare isn't cyclical like tech is. It doesn't crash when interest rates go up. And frankly, ageism is less of a factor because the demand is so high.
And what about remote work?
Huge potential for remote work. Once you're certified and you're trusted, you can absolutely do this from home. You are the compliance firewall. In healthcare, you need a human to sign off on the code so there's someone to blame if an audit goes wrong. Lisa is that human. AI can't take the blame.
AI creates the draft. Lisa creates the liability shield. I like that.
Precisely.
Okay, moving on to our fifth segment. Let's talk sales and R&D. We have Alex, he's 32, making $85,000 in inside sales.
Alex is in a really dangerous spot. There's Bloomberg data that suggests AI can replace about 67% of the tasks a typical sales rep does. Prospecting, initial outreach, scheduling. If your job is just to smile and dial, you are toast.
So what's the pivot for him?
Alex has to pivot up market or technical. He needs to become a sales engineer or an enterprise account executive.
What's a sales engineer? I've heard that title, but I'm not totally sure what they do.
A sales engineer is the person who comes into the big meeting when the client asks, okay, but how does this API actually integrate with our legacy system? The regular sales rep panics. The sales engineer calmly answers the question. They don't just sell the relationship. They explain how the product works on a deep technical level.
So they need to have those technical skills.
Yes, but they leverage their sales background to communicate it. The salary potential here is huge. We're talking 100 to 150,000 plus. But the strategy is, don't just sell, explain. Deep technical product knowledge is the moat that protects you.
And that's similar for our last persona, the researcher.
Yeah, think of a research associate in a biotech lab. They're making 55,000, doing a lot of repetitive pipetting. Well, robots are doing the pipetting now.
So I pivot to R&D ops.
Just like legal ops, it's about managing the process of research, managing the data pipelines from the experiments, the lab automation software. It moves them from a $55,000 technician role to a $75,000 to $125,000 strategic role.
It really seems like ops is the recurring theme here. Legal ops, R&D ops, sales ops.
Ops essentially means managing the machine. And as the machines get better and more complex, the people who can manage them become more valuable.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. We've got David in the cloud, Sarah in nursing, Jennifer and Marcus in these white-collar pivots, Lisa in coding, and Alex in sales engineering. I want to try and pull this all together into what we're calling the universal principles.
Right. These are the 7 rules that apply no matter which path you pick. If you're listening and none of these specific personas fit you exactly, you can use these principles to build your own map.
Okay, principle number 1, protected destination.
Don't just learn a skill. Pick a destination that is structurally safe. So that's healthcare, because of human touch and regulation, the trades, because of physical reality, or strategic tech, which is about managing complexity. You want to avoid any entry-level white-collar task where your output is just a digital file. Because if your output is a file, AI can probably make it.
Number 2, fastest credential path.
You don't have 4 years. You might not even have 3. You need a path that can be completed in 24 months or less. So that means certifications, associate degrees, or these accelerated bridge programs.
Principle number 3, leverage your transferable skills.
Jennifer didn't just throw away her legal knowledge. She pivoted it. Lisa didn't throw away her attention to detail from data entry. Don't start from zero if you don't have to.
Right. Number 4, build while you're working.
All of these roadmaps, David studying at night, Sarah doing her weekend CNA shifts, they assume you need to keep your income going. The whole quit your job and go back to school model is just too risky for most people in 2026.
Principle number 5, strategic pay cuts.
This is the Sarah principle, and it's the hardest one. Sometimes you have to take one step back to take 2 giant steps forward. Don't let your ego about your current salary prevent you from saving your entire career.
Number 6, documented results.
David doesn't just walk in and say, I know AWS. He has the certification to prove it. Jennifer has the CLM. In a flooded job market, you need that piece of paper or that digital badge that proves you can do the work, no question.
And finally, principle number 7, which might be my favorite. Specialize narrowly.
The specialist premium. Be the construction accounting AI guy, not just the AI guy. Be the AWS network security specialist, not just the IT guy. Specificity is safety.
I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, that pay cut debate. With Sarah dropping from $45,000 to $39,000, you called it an act of courage.
Mm-hmm.
But is it actually realistic? Can a 35-year-old really survive on $39,000 in 2026?
It is incredibly hard. I will not sugarcoat it for a second. In many major cities, that is poverty wages. But you have to look at the alternative. If her retail job disappears in 3 years and she has no next step planned, she goes from $45,000 to $0.
So it's a calculated short-term period of suffering?
It's a survival transformation. You downsize your apartment, you get roommates, you eat a lot of rice and beans because you know it is only for 12 months until you hit that LPN pay bump. It is so much better to choose your suffering now than to have suffering forced on you later.
That is a very sobering thought. Choose your suffering now.
And look at the flip side, the cost of inaction. Compare David's $1,000 investment in AWS certs. What is the cost if he doesn't do it? He stays in customer service. 2 years from now, his company deploys a new voice AI model. He's laid off. Now he's unemployed with no savings and no new skills. The cost of inaction is everything.
And speaking of costs, I want to warn people about what I call the certification trap.
Oh yes, the vanity metrics.
We mentioned very specific certs today. AWS Solutions Architect, CPC, CLM, CompTIA. These are currency in the job market.
Yeah.
But there are a million AI certificates out there from random websites that mean nothing.
Here's the rule. If you don't see that certification listed in the requirements section of a job posting on Indeed or LinkedIn, do not pay for it, period. Job descriptions tell you exactly what the market values. You have to listen to the market, not to the marketing from some online course.
That is fantastic advice. Only buy what they are already buying.
Exactly.
We are coming up on the hour here. We have thrown a lot of numbers, a lot of acronyms at you today, but I hope the main picture is clear. Fear is paralyzed by a plan.
That is the whole takeaway. Anxiety comes from not knowing what to do. The minute you have a plan, okay, month 1, I study this. Month 3, I pay $265 for this exam. The anxiety changes into work. It becomes manageable.
So here's our final provocation for you. If you lost your job today, right now as you were listening to this, could you rebuild a better, more secure career for $2,000?
And if the answer to that question is no, then you are overpaying for your current stability. You are betting everything on a job that might not love you back.
Don't just listen to this deep dive and nod your head. Pick a track, look up the exam fee, write it down on a piece of paper. Comp TIA A+1, $265. Make it real.
The clock is ticking. Start Monday.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you in the next one.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. Join us next time on Surviving AI.